host, Aislinn, and today we have a very, very exciting guest episode. I am so excited for this conversation. It's going to be so beautiful, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear what we talk about. So today on the podcast, we have Jessica Battle. And Jess, I'm just so excited to see you here, so excited to have this conversation with you. So if you'd love to introduce yourself, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited for this combo too. I know it's going to be amazing. I was just saying to you, like, we could talk about anything, and I know it'll be such a great combo. I'm really, really excited. So, yeah, I'm Jessica Battle, well known on social media. Join Jessica XO, kind of all of my platforms. I am a podcaster, motivational speaker, and coach. Best known for probably my body transformation. Sadly, that's something that really sticks out to a lot of people. I've lost 100 pounds twice, and that's kind of how I grew in popularity in the online space. I was featured on the cover of People magazine, which was so cool. I was on Oprah.com and the Huffington Post. I was on Entertainment Tonight, the Megyn Kelly show. So that's really how I gained popularity in the online space, because of my 100-pound weight loss journey. But truly, I care about so much more than that. Obviously, I help people in the wellness space, but what I am best known for is really helping women with their mindsets and helping them step into being the woman that they want to be and need to be in order to achieve all of their goals and dreams in life.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me, like, to hear you introduce yourself, like, and like what you've done, all of your accomplishments and all of the accolades, and like what you're well known for, because I feel like I have almost a like deeper perspective of like who you are because we've been in masterminds together. And so for
Yeah.
me, like when I think of you, I think of just mindset, I think of staying power, I think of just like positive light in this world. Like those are the things I associate with you. And it's so cool that like you lost 100 pounds twice, so like that's like part of like your story. But for me, like when I think of you, I think more on the mindset side of things. So I'm excited to have that conversation today.
Yeah, me too, 100%. And that means so much to me, because while people see the physical transformation, who I am is obviously so much deeper than that. And we had some really beautiful, intimate conversations over the years that we were together in a mastermind. And I hope that the people who come into contact with me, they can, yeah, sure, celebrate me for the physical transformation, but see that there's so much more than that to me. And the lessons that I bring forward from that are really what is helping change the world.
Yeah, I love that. So today we're really just going to be getting into mindset, entrepreneurship, growth, talking about like what it feels like to scale your business, what it feels like to have staying power, how to have a better mindset just in general. I think this conversation, if you get nothing else, I'm sure there will be some gems of this conversation around mindset, because I think both of us are kind of like the like pep talk queens, like we're definitely the mindset queens, and so this is going to be so fun.
100%, 100%.
Yeah, so I would love to just like hear more about your journey to where you are today in regards to breaking free from self-sabotaging behavior, because that is something you talk about a lot. And if you guys don't
Mhm.
know, Jess has a really amazing podcast. It's called The Queen of Pep Talks. Immediately, go follow immediately. It's like the best one ever. But
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
I really want to hear more about your journey of like how you kind of broke free of self-sabotaging behaviors and like kind of what the evolution of that has looked like.
Yeah, 100%. So I think that, and I know that many of the women here in your audience are here because they're growing their businesses. And I wish that I could say that a lot of the lessons that I learned came from my business, but they didn't. They just translated really beautifully into my business, if that makes sense. Because as you guys know, like when you work on mindset, like that leaks into every area of your life. So whether you're wanting to improve your finances, your relationship, your business, your body, like the mind is the mind. And when you work on changing that, it's going to translate into everything that you do. So when I was 19, I lost 100 pounds through a very restrictive diet, over exercising, under eating. And I had this real obsession, I think, as many women do, with getting to a point where I felt like I was happy with my body so I could be happy in my life. And what I failed to realize during that weight loss journey was that this is something that I need to do forever, right? And you talk about knowing me as someone who has really powerful staying power. And unfortunately, it's because I didn't always have that. And I realized that without staying power, you can achieve results, but you don't actually sustain them. And that was what happened to me. So I lost 100 pounds, stopped doing all the things that I had done to get there, very quickly put all of that weight back on, continued to struggle with yo-yo dieting over the years. And I really had to start looking at why is this a recurring pattern for me? Why am I continuing to take steps forward, but then ultimately hit a wall and end up regressing backwards? And my weight loss at the time was the thing that so clearly, it's like lose 100 pounds, gain 100 pounds, lose 60 pounds, gain 80 pounds, lose 40 pounds, gain 50 pounds. It's like I was taking steps forward, but ultimately there always came a time where it was like hit a wall, taking steps back. And I was exhausted from feeling like I'm making traction forward, I'm becoming successful, but it's something that I cannot sustain. So I had to really start looking at my patterns and behaviors in my life and asking myself, like, what is causing this? Like, what is the issue here? And there were a couple of things for me. The biggest was perfectionism and all or nothing thinking, with this belief of like, in order to be successful, I need to give 150% effort every single day for the rest of my life. And the moment that I can't do that, it's like, well, fuck it. Like, I guess I'm not going to be successful then. And I go right back to like all of the behaviors and patterns that aren't in alignment with me becoming who I want to be. And as I just continue to get curious about myself, it's like recognizing that I had really unrealistic expectations. Like, I wanted things to happen really fast. And when they didn't happen fast, it was like, screw it. What's the point in trying? I wanted to be able to be perfect. I wanted to be able to have things feel easy for me all of the time. And it's like, well, being successful requires sacrifices and things aren't always going to be easy. So it was really just a matter of being frustrated enough with myself that I was willing to have the long, hard conversation that most people avoid in their lives. Like being willing to look in the mirror and say, there's a pattern here and you are the common denominator. What is going on with the way that you're thinking? Because obviously you know how to lose weight, you know the behaviors, you know the strategy, but the strategy isn't enough. It's the who you're being on a daily basis that actually helps you achieve the things that you want. So I had to have those long, hard conversations and say, these are the things that need to change. And then actively started undoing some of the beliefs and thoughts that I had about myself.
I 1,000% agree. And I like as a gym girly, like I definitely go to the gym like fairly often. I've consistently gone to the gym, usually anywhere between 3 to 6 days a week for the past 7 years. When there was this season of like, I'm only going to the gym once a week, or I'm only going twice a week, or 3 times a week, like there was so much pressure on every single time that I went to the gym because it was like, I have to be perfect every time I go because I'm only going 3 times. Versus when you're putting in the reps and you're putting in the like 6 days, 5 days a week, one gym session is not going to change like the consistency over time. So it's such a mindset flip of like what most people think. They just want it to be easy. And it's like, well, no, it's more just like how many times you do it.
Exactly. I have this same exact conversation with so many of my clients related to social media. They put so much desire to be perfect on every single piece of content. And I'm like, if you would just post consistently, you would be far further along than trying to post one time a week and hoping that that one post per week is going to be the post that makes you go viral. Like, be consistent. Consistency over perfection obviously is going to take you so much further. And one thing that really helped me with that is like really trying to debunk for myself what perfect even means, right? Because sometimes I don't even think that we believe we need to be perfect. It's just a really convenient excuse that we've gotten into telling ourselves, of like, oh, I don't think I can do it perfectly. Oh, no, it's not going to be perfect. Oh, I can't do it the way I thought I would. So we just say like, oh, I'm not going to do it at all. When it's like, what does perfect even mean in that area of your life? Like, what is the perfect social media post? Like, what is the perfect gym routine? What is the perfect diet? Like, perfect isn't real. It's relative to who you are and what you like and your expectations and what you deem as good or bad. So it's like, if you feel that, understand that perfect isn't even real. And if you can let go of this facade that you've created for yourself, that things need to be perfect, you can realize that consistency will take you so much further than perfect ever would.
Yeah, and I think like not attaching consistency with perfectionism of like consistency has to look like 7 days a week. No, consistency,
Mm-hmm.
like if you looked at like 30 days, can look like 15 days of you doing the thing, or it could look like 21 days of you doing the thing. It doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
that it's like the same every time, and it definitely does not mean that it's perfect either.
100%. That's probably one of the most valuable lessons that I've learned in my life, is understanding that our best effort from day to day is going to look really different. And sure, there will be days where you feel like you did things perfectly. And I think that's one of the things, especially related to really related to anything where you feel like the motivation and excitement in the beginning of pursuing a goal is so high that your drive to take action is massive. It's like, oh, I'm excited about this. It's brand new. I can't wait to do it. I know I'm going to get this incredible result at the end. And it's like you're motivated and you're excited about it. And you prove to yourself that you are maybe capable of showing up perfectly, but that level of energy and intensity is just not sustainable long term. So it's like, sure, maybe for a week you can do it perfectly, but eventually life is going to happen. You're going to get sick. Your kids are going to need something. You're going to have to work overtime. There's going to be an emergency. Like, and understanding that on those days, you still have effort to give, but it's not going to be the same degree or level of effort that you had last week. And especially as women, right? The way that our hormones fluctuate, understanding that is so important because your energy, week 3 of your cycle is going to be very different than your energy week 1 of your cycle. And if you don't learn to honor what your best effort is every day, even if that's 10%, then you're just not going to do anything. When it's like the little bit of effort that you put in is valuable rather than just saying, oh, I don't have 100% to give today, so I'm just going to give nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that came up for me that I was thinking about was like I have done this pretty consistently throughout my life. I've done like 30-day challenges for things. So like a 30-day like post a reel a day kind of challenge. 30 days of consistently getting to the gym 5 days a week, 30 days of whatever. And when I am doing that, what I'm thinking about is this is sprint level effort. This is
Exactly.
skill building effort. What I am doing right now is I am building the skill. This is the intensity level that I associate with sprints. This is not the intensity level I associate with like regular consistency. And that has really
Exactly.
helped me to like, I'll take seasons where I'll be like, okay, we're going to write like 20 emails this like week so that I can like skill build, or we're going to like learn how to do a new way of, podcasting or a new way of making content. It's skill building. It's sprint season versus consistent season. So I think that kind of mindset
Yep.
shift is really helpful as well.
Yeah, 100%. Knowing that there will be periods of time where there is a new level of effort that you're putting into certain things, right? And that's exciting and that's fun. But also, like you're saying, understanding that that's different than what's sustainable long term. And I love that because people often talk about like, oh, it's a marathon, not a sprint. There can be sprint seasons, but understanding that that's a season that will have to come to an end. And then that doesn't mean that you completely stop doing it. Like you did a 30-day Reels challenge. That didn't mean you never posted a reel again. It was like you just posted a reel maybe 3 times a week instead of every single day for 30 days. It's not going from doing it all to doing nothing. It's pushing hard, but then going back to something that's sustainable.
Yeah, and they talk about this when you're doing like half marathon training, or if you're doing like powerlifting or any kind of like prep type of work, is like when you are learning and like when you are skill building and when you are like pushing the edges of what you are capable of, the intensity is going to look so different than like what you like regularly are sustaining.
100%. I am doing my first powerlifting meet at the end of this year. Powerlifting is very new to me. I'm so excited about it. But I was talking to my coach just last week about how a prep looks different than my powerlifting programming now. And that's exactly what we were talking about is the level of intensity goes up. Like what you're doing now, sure, it feels intense, but in the 12 weeks that you're preparing to step onto that platform, intensity goes up. And then afterwards, intensity goes back down to a sustainable level. But there will be a push, right? In order to get to the point where you can be as successful as you want to be in that event. But that's not something that you're going to train for year round.
Yeah, and I think this is something that everyone like listening to this can take this into your business. Like we're talking here
100%.
about fitness stuff, and we're talking about like eating and like dieting and all that kind of stuff. We're talking about those things, but you can take this and apply it towards your business. And like if you look at like the most successful people that like you look up to, and you're like, wow, like they have such cool businesses or they're doing such cool things, it's very likely they have a similar mindset to this, where they have sprint modes where they are skill building or they are pushing intensity or pushing their edges, pushing their capacity, and they have sustainable effort. And they know the
Yep,
difference between those two things. It's not all or nothing. It's intense and then medium intense. Like because like,
exactly.
building a business like is going to be medium intense most of the time.
Always. I feel like it's like gauging between medium and high intensity. And then there's like the extra intense level. It's like it requires effort. And I think that's something that's challenging for a lot of people is like the level of effort that is required to be the person that you want to be. It's not always fun and it's not always pretty. And I think that social media, especially in the world of business, social media has a way of glamorizing business where it's like, oh, look at me, like taking a bubble bath and making 100 grand. Like, what did you have to do to get there? There's no context for people. There's no context of the years put in, the hours put in, the reputation that was built, the time, the sacrifices. You have to understand that nothing in life worth having is going to be easy, right? Like, that's not a popular saying for no reason. It's true. The things that you want to achieve require a level of effort, especially if you're looking to set yourself apart from the pack. If you want to be different, if you want to be better, if you want to be more successful, you can't do what normal folks are doing. You have to push yourself harder than that.
Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful thought to have, is like not just like who am I being, but also what is the effort level like required of the thing that I want. Like I think back to like
Yeah.
when you and I first met in a mastermind back in 2021, and I remember looking at the women in that mastermind and being like, "Oh, everyone is so far along. They are having like 50K cash months and they are having 100K cash months and 20K cash months." And I was like, "This is a lot. I can do this right now." And what actually had to happen for me to get to the point in business that I am now, several years later, is I had to clear out a lot of the stuff that was keeping me from being able to move faster. I had to change my
Mm-hmm.
environment. I had to change my
Mm-hmm.
boundaries. I had to change like what I was doing like on a day-to-day basis and how I was showing up on a day-to-day basis in order to
Mm-hmm.
get to that point. But it's really easy to like look at people where they are in their journey and be like, "Oh, I can do that right now." And it's like, "Well,
Mm-hmm.
what are you willing to change to do that right
Yeah.
now?"
Yeah, exactly. And not only what are you willing to change to do that, but I think in business, especially, like I work with a lot of women who are new to building businesses and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to be successful. I want to be at 20, 30, 50K months. And I'm like, but what is required of you, like physically, emotionally, time wise? What is required of you to be a person who holds that is something that has to be built over time. Right? Like if I gave you my client roster right now, and I gave you my podcast, and I gave you my social media, and I gave you my email list, how would you handle it? How would you handle it? And the truth is, they're not built to handle it yet, and that's okay. But you build yourself to handling it by taking one step at a time and holding space for one client and one program and 10 people on your email list and one masterclass. That's how you learn to hold that. And if we're given things too soon, shit's just going to fall apart because you don't actually know what to do with it.
Yeah, and I'll take this back to fitness. Can you imagine what you are lifting right now, handing that to the woman who had never lifted before, like however many months ago that was? She would have
Yeah,
just been like, "Are you kidding me?" Like,
100%. I actually was just talking about that in a training for my new membership. I was talking about how right now I am not the same person in terms of fitness as I was 10 years ago when I started. Like I genuinely see myself as an athlete now, someone who is willing to make sacrifices and do things that I don't want to do in the gym to become better at what I'm working hard to become. 10 years ago, all I wanted was to be consistent with working out a couple of times a week. It requires me being a different person to say I'm willing to go in the gym and do some shit that I really don't want to do because I know it's improving a weak link for me and that's going to improve me as a power lifter. That was a becoming of me as a person, right? Not just in terms of the weight that I can hold, but in terms of the sacrifices that I'm willing to make to achieve the thing that I want. And again, that's built over time. I think one of the biggest struggles for people when it comes to being successful is just the desire to have it quickly. And it's like, honey, settle in, work on your patience because good things take time and it's okay for it to take time. It doesn't mean you're behind. Again, I think social media plays a role in this, constantly feeling like we're behind on a timeline. We should be further ahead. Like we should be further along. We should be making more money. We should have more followers. Well, sure, maybe you feel that way, but also understanding the time that it takes to build. And it's okay. Just work on being patient.
yeah, my CFO recently was telling me how proud she was of how sustainable my business was. She was
Mm-hmm.
like, she has a lot of clients who like make like really high cash months, and she was like, "You're doing this in a way that you're going to be able to sustain it for a long time." And I was like, "Yep." Because I've learned my lesson from like even just weight loss. Like I've learned my lesson of like if you lose it too quickly, it's all
It's
or
not
nothing.
sustainable.
Like
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm like, you know what? I am here for the long haul. I am here to build. Like I am here for sustainability, and it's such a
Mm-hmm.
different way of thinking, which actually brings me into kind of one of the questions and things I wanted to talk about. So I actually went back to my notes to figure out when you had said this to me, but back in January of 2022, something that you said to me that has stuck with me forever. Like this literally like lives on a loop in my head. Something you said to me was, I am a woman who is capable of handling the capacity of a multi six figure business. And you also said, everything is temporary. The highs, the lows, I can always trust that like I'm going to be okay on the other side of things. I want to talk
Mm-hmm.
about that mindset because A, it's stuck with me for so long, but B, I feel like as you are growing and as you are scaling and as you are like getting more consistent in your life, you're going to hit these moments where you're like, burn it down, burn it down, I'm done. And I think
Yeah.
that knowing what to do, knowing what to do in those moments, I think is so helpful. So I want to like really dive into this.
Yeah. So, in terms of the being a woman who has the capacity to hold a multiple six-figure business, I am of the belief that we get what we believe we're deserving of, we get what we believe we're worthy of, and we get what we believe we're capable of having. And our effort is only going to match the belief that lives within us. So for me, if I want to hold a multiple six-figure, $1 million business, I have to identify myself as someone who is capable of doing that. And for me, that kind of language starts well before I actually have that belief like deeply embodied in myself. Like I am talking to myself as if I'm the woman that I want to be far before I actually believe that I'm the woman that I want to be. And that's made a massive difference in my life, right? Like we believe what we tell ourselves, and what we tell ourselves creates emotion within us, and those emotions are driving action. So instead of saying to myself like, oh, I don't think I have it, like I grew up poor, I was $60,000 in debt, like I don't really know how to run a business, instead of telling myself those things because that's what I'll believe and that's what my action is going to follow, I'm going to tell myself I'm a woman who is capable of holding this, capable of holding it well, capable of holding it with class, capable of holding it with integrity, capable of holding it with respect and love for myself. Because if that's what I tell myself, that's what I'm going to believe. Um, in terms of the everything is temporary, and I always trust that I will be okay on the other side of things. That's twofold for me. So from whenever I share that with you, and that's a saying that I say a lot. I also, in addition to that, as of more recently, probably in the last 2 years, have started saying to myself, everything is already okay. Because even when we're in the midst of like wanting to burn our business to the ground, and I've been there, I know you've been there. I think if you've been in business longer than 3 weeks, you've had a moment where you're like, WTF, like forget this, I'm walking away. I love holding on to the trust that everything is going to be okay. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But even more so, the grounding that I feel when I tell myself everything is already okay is so powerful for me, because it's like, there's actually nothing to worry about, because whatever the problem is, whoever the client is that's upset, or the defaulted payment plan, or the lack of engagement on social media, like all of that, it's this little blip in time. And it doesn't actually change anything about who you are. It doesn't change that you're a healthy person who has a beautiful home and an amazing partner and money in the bank. Like it doesn't change those things. So if you're in a moment where it feels like you're frazzled and you want to tear things down, take a moment, take a breath, and like really look around. Because if you're fortunate enough to be in a position where you're on social media and you have Wi-Fi and you have the ability to build a business, like your life is already okay. And I think that sometimes perspective is incredibly important as driven people who are wanting more and more and more. And we're like, I want to make $1 million a month. Great. But even if I don't, everything is okay right now.
Yeah, something I wrote down that like just really hit home for me is like, if you make it big in your mind, you're making it big in your body. And if you make it big in your body is going to trigger a response to that.
Yeah,
So we talk a lot
100%.
in like my world around like the nervous system regulation
Mm-hmm.
and like the like neuroscience and like, you know, the manifesty side of things. But if you want to like break it down super simply, the bigger you make it in your mind, the bigger you are making it to your nervous system. So cut it
Mm-hmm.
out. If you're
Yeah.
like, I'm not making $1 million a month right now, like that makes me terrible and like everything is not okay because no one's engaging with my stuff. That energy right there is going into your body. Your body is going to like either like fight, flight, like all the different responses. It's going to like figure out like what it's going to do. that is going to be what your next step is. And that's what's going to be like what the action that gets taken comes from. So if you want
100%.
to take action from an empowered place, you're going to have
Mhm.
to like break that pattern that's going on within that loop in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. I try really hard to share authentically with my audience and share the highs and the lows and the good and the bad, but I am very intentional and careful about how much I share the struggles that I'm having personally with personal anxieties or personal problems in my life, because much like you're saying, I found for myself, the more I talk about it, the more I focus on it, the bigger it becomes. And if I don't, I think that the best thing that you can do for yourself is step back into the power that you have as a human, that you get to create your reality for yourself. And if you don't want to feel the way that you're feeling right now, stop focusing on the shit that you're focusing on. Like, you get to decide what you're going to give your energy to. You get to decide the things that you're going to talk about, the conversations you're going to have, what you're going to focus on, where you're going to put your energy, where you're going to put your time. Like, you decide that. And if I don't want to feel bad or worried or anxious, then I'm not going to spend my day walking around telling everyone, oh man, I woke up so anxious this morning. That's not helping me feel better. That's helping me stay in a place of feeling anxious.
I heard this once and like it always like hits home, but also makes me want to run. And the quote is find a better problem.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
yeah, find a better problem. Like the people that you look
Yeah.
up to, the people who have like the success that you're like, I want that. They're not thinking about the same things you're thinking about. They're thinking about
No.
different problems. They're thinking about different like ways of being, different ways of being empowered. Find a different thing to focus on.
100%. And even beyond that, like, I have found that my life changed drastically when I stopped looking at problems and I started seeking solutions. Like, sure, there might be a problem in front of you. How do you fix it? Because the people that choose to fix their problems and fix them faster, they're the people that move forward in life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love to talk about staying power. I think that this is such a
Mhm.
powerful conversation and it might not be something that like my audience or your audience has heard before. So for me personally, when I think about you, I definitely think about staying power and I think about you being someone who's like willing to do hard stuff and stick with it. So I want to talk about cultivating that kind of mindset because it's not the norm and it's not the easy thing to have a mindset around.
Yeah, 100%. I think what has really built me into being a woman, and I appreciate that you see me that way, because it it's important for people from my audience who listen to this and people from your audience who don't know me at all to know that this is not who I always was, right? And that for me is so huge, because I was a person for the large majority of my life who struggled to be consistent, who struggled to show up on hard days, who struggled with needing to be motivated. So to be seen by women that I respect in the industry who are like, you have staying power, like, that for me is such a beautiful compliment. And I do see that in myself. Like, I am persistent and I am consistent and I show up on the days that I want to and the days that I don't, the days that it's easy and the days that it's hard. And what has built me into being this person is the realization that doing the work to get there doesn't keep you there. You can do the work to get somewhere, but that's not going to help you stay there. It, again, this is a lesson that came from my weight loss journey that is so beautifully translated into my business. In order to not only achieve the results that you want, but maintain those results, you have to be willing to do something very similar to whatever it is that got you there. So if you're following a diet where you're eating 1,200 calories a day and you lose 100 pounds, you don't get to go back to eating 3,000 calories a day and think that you're going to maintain that. If you built a business making $50,000 cash months by showing up on social media and running masterclasses and programs and masterminds, you don't get to wipe your offer slate clean and think that you're still going to maintain $50,000 cash months. Like, you have to be able to continue showing up and doing the work that got you to the point that you wanted to be. And the only way that we do that is by having staying power, by being consistent, by showing up when we want to and when we don't want to. And a mantra that I have created for myself and embodied so deeply is that I am not a woman who is dependent on feeling like it to show up. And I think that a lot of people, they want to feel like it, they want to be inspired, they want to be motivated, but my feelings don't dictate how I show up, because my feelings are temporary. The goals and dreams that I have for my life, they matter to me, and whether I feel like doing the work or not, I'm going to get up and do the work.
I love that. I talk a lot with my clients about like I want you to create businesses that feel good. And when I
Mm-hmm.
talk about that, I'm not talking about businesses that are easy or
Yeah.
businesses that require no effort. What I'm talking about is I want you to be so freaking in love with the business that you are creating because it is so deeply attached to your why and it is so deeply attached to your purpose and your passions
Mm-hmm.
over like having a business that feels like good because
Mm-hmm.
it's easy. Like it's not. Like the businesses that you see that you love and you're like I want to create that, they take effort. They really do.
Yep.
And maybe people don't
Yeah.
talk about it as much, but it definitely takes effort.
Yeah, 100%. And uh, again, I think it's important that we enjoy what we do. And look, like I love my business to pieces. It means the world to me. Like every single client of mine, I love every offer that I've created. I love it all. But that doesn't mean that I wake up every single day excited to work. Like I'm a human being who has highs and lows and good days and bad days. And some days I wake up and I'm like, man, I'm really not feeling it today. But that doesn't mean that I don't do anything. And sure, I've created the freedom for myself where it's like I can move things around. And that's a beautiful luxury of being an entrepreneur. But understanding that just because you love something and you care about something and it means the world to you doesn't mean that it's going to be fun all of the time. Like there are things in business, especially when you're new and before you can outsource to having a team and people who support you, where you're the one wearing every single hat and doing every single thing. You might not like the back end of MailChimp and writing emails, but guess what? If you want to grow your email list, hun, you got to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like you got to accept that it's not always going to be fun. And there are going to be parts that you're like, oh, I'd rather not do this. But that's life. You make sacrifices for people around you all of the time, do things that you don't want to do all of the time. But when it comes to our own goals and dreams, we're like, oh, I don't feel like it, so I'm not going to. We've got to stop with that mindset. Like our goals and dreams matter, and they should matter to us so much that despite liking it or enjoying it or being in the mood to do it, we're going to show up and do it regardless.
Yeah, and I will say one thing that has really helped me with that is by making sure that I have CEO days scheduled into my schedule so that I'm not required to feel a certain way in order to show up to my business. So like
Yep.
yesterday was a CEO day for me. Like I sat my butt on the couch and I read a book for about 5 hours and it was the
Mm-hmm.
best thing ever because today I was like, okay, I have a podcast interview. I'm going to batch content. I'm going to batch emails and it's going to be great. I had the creative space and energy to show up the way I did today because I took space yesterday, but it was planned space that I always make
Exactly.
sure I have in my business.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that I know it took me time to find how important that was for myself in my business. It really took me not having that. It took me not having boundaries. It took me not having CEO days. It took me not having, time management skills to realize like, oh, it feels like I'm working 24/7. And I didn't start a business to work 24/7. I started a business to work less, not more. Right. So understanding that it might take you getting to a point where you feel frustrated and you're like, oh, I don't really feel that great in my business. And then you start asking, what can I implement to change that? Because we do have to give ourselves space. Like without that space, my creativity personally dies when I don't have space to just like think and be and exist without feeling like there's always something to do.
Yeah, and like I think that's something to like kind of touch on too is that like as you get further along in business, there will be times where you find things in your business that you're like, "Oh, that used to work for me, and now it very much is not within my tolerance like levels
Mm-hmm.
anymore. It's not something I can keep doing. What am I going to do to change it?" So, I'm sure
Yeah.
you have examples of this, but earlier this year, I had my signature program had Slack access to me, and it was Monday through Friday, and I didn't really have boundaries around when I was in there. Earlier
Mm-hmm.
this year, I changed that. I was like, I'm going to be in there during these hours every single day, like Monday through Friday for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it drastically changed how much space I had to scale my business. Because if I had kept
100%.
going the way I was going, I would have been like not able to scale to higher like cash
Yeah.
months, not be able to serve more clients, not be able to like breathe and read a book if I want to read a book. So just
Yep.
recognize like over time, like there's going to be times where you have to change things in your business and it's going to look
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, I'm sure you remember the conversation that we had in the mastermind at one point where you told me, like, go to your calendar in November of next year and put on there, slow down. Because I was in a season of my business. I think it was my second year in business. I was a season where I had no boundaries. I had no days out of Voxer. I was coaching 24/7. My work phone was coming with me places. I was like, all I want to do is make more money. So I scheduled a 3-day masterclass over Christmas. Like, what was I thinking? At the end, I was like, I hate myself so much right now. Like, I do not want to feel like this at the end of the year. When Steph was in there and she's like, chill vibe. She's like, oh, end of the year, I'm cozy with my dog, me and Ocean chilling. And I'm like, I'm over here working, busting my butt. I feel terrible about this. And I had a lot to learn about managing my time and what was important to me. And I think it's easy to get wrapped up in like, just make more money, make more money. But it's like, no, time and space is valuable to me as well. And if that means I don't do a masterclass that's going to bring in a couple $1,000s, then so what? Like, I'm not going to die because of it. I'd rather have that empty space on my calendar where I can chill over the holidays too.
Yeah, like I think that's such an important thing is like building in space before you actually get to that season. So like if you're
Yeah.
listening to this right now and you're like, "Oh, well, maybe next year I want to take a vacation like over the holidays." Book
Hmm.
it now. Like go ahead and
Yep.
put it on your calendar now so that you don't get to November of next year and go, "Oh, I have 14,000 things on my calendar. What am I going to do?" Well,
Yep.
you're already there. You're in execution mode, not in planning mode. So like go ahead and plan for
Yep.
it like in the future for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I find it so helpful to sit down at the start of every quarter and look at the rest of the year, like what's coming, what do I have planned, what do I know that I want to do, and where do I need to build space into my calendar where it's like you're taking this time off. Because if not, like in that season that we're talking about for me, I would go on a tropical vacation to the Dominican Republic and be doing a Zoom call from my room. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Why am I doing this? Like, I deserve to take a vacation.
Yeah, and I think that's important to like recognize too is that there will be seasons in your business that feel like that until your tolerance levels are like we're not doing this anymore. So like a lot of
Yep.
people want to skip straight to like having like oh I only am in Voxer once a week.
Yeah.
You just started your business, excuse me? Like like at
Exactly.
least
Exactly.
you have to like know what you don't want in order to know what you do want sometimes. So for me
A
personally, like I
hundred
look back at
percent.
like 2022 and 2023 and I'm like, yeah, my boundaries are a little funky, but like I was living by myself like across country from my husband for 6 months. I can be in Voxer at 7 p.m. That's fine. But now that like
Yeah.
I'm in a different season, absolutely
Yep.
not. 4 p.m.
Yep.
comes, I'm out. Peace.
I'm
Sorry.
out.
Love you
Yep.
guys.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's so true. Like, in order to know that something doesn't work for you, you have to experience it and then be like, oh, you know what? No, I don't like that. Time to implement some changes here. But I agree. In the beginning of my business, I was happy to serve all of the time. I mean, I was working a full-time job. So I was taking calls in the morning, taking calls in the evening, working on my lunch break, like whatever sacrifices I had to make to build to the point that I was able to leave my job, I was willing to make. But when things start to feel bad, then things need to change. And I think that's scary for people because, especially when it comes to like offers in your business, feeling like, oh, this isn't working for me anymore. I don't like this anymore. I just shut down my podcast subscription. That was hard for me. I had 100 people in there. Like, they're disappointed, they're bummed, but I don't want to do it anymore. And I love those people, but I don't want to do it anymore. And it's my business for a reason, and I get to make the choices. And even though it's hard and it's scary and it's unknown, it's like, you got to trust when you are feeling a need for a change, trust that.
Yeah. Like if you're a wedding professional listening to this and there's like coming a season where you're like, I don't want to do weddings anymore, trust that. Trust that. Either it needs to be something changes within the way you're doing it, or it really is time to shut it down and move on. I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people stay, like, and we talk about staying power, this is different. A lot of people stay beyond the point of their tolerance, they stay beyond the
Yes.
point of honoring themselves. And when you are, it is to be disrespectful to everyone involved if you stay beyond the point of like wanting to be there. I
Mm-hmm.
want to be there. Like I want to like I when I was retiring from weddings, I told my husband I was like I never want to hit the point of resentment because
Yep.
that's not fair to me and it's certainly not fair to my clients. I never
Yep.
want to show up to somebody's wedding day and be like I hate it here. That is
Yep.
absolutely not fair to anyone. So if you are feeling that way, either something needs to change or it is
Mm-hmm.
time to move on.
Yep. Exactly. It's important to have the self-awareness and trust within yourself to know when it's time to quit something. And that's not just like quitting all the time because you're having a hard time staying consistent, but knowing when it's time to move on.
Yeah, and that's for me the way I think about it is like how am I advocating for myself? How am I honoring myself? Are my choices
Mm-hmm.
doing those things? And if they're not, we need to have a shift somewhere or pivot somewhere.
Yep. Absolutely.
So I really want to go into like queen of pep talks. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
want to hear, like, are there any mindset shifts that have been on your mind recently? Things that have helped you to keep showing up boldly in your life? Because when I look at like the way you do life, I'm like, that is,
Mm-hmm.
it's so intentional, and it's so like, like, yes, like life is gonna life, you're gonna have the hard things, you're gonna have the good things too, but you always show up so authentically as yourself, and like it always seems like you're choosing, if that makes sense. You're
Mm-hmm.
always very
Yeah.
intentional with what you're doing. So I want to hear
Yeah.
from you, like, if there's any shifts or anything that's been on your brain recently that like you can kind of impart to the audience.
Yeah, well, thank you again. Those compliments are just so beautiful and meaningful. One of the things that has been on my mind, there are two that have been on my mind quite a lot lately. One is that, and this might be relevant for your audience, might not, but it's true for me at this moment, and I think relevant for any woman who is building dreams. I have noticed that the happier and more confident I become in myself, the easier it is for people to dislike me. And I am working very hard on not allowing people's discomfort with my bigness to make me shrink. And I lately, more than ever, I've been getting just a lot of hate online, as bullies can tend to do. And I'm used to it. I know I'm not new to that. But it's almost like the happier I get and the more confident I feel in myself, the more that disturbs people. And it makes me sad for them, but at the same time, I refuse to allow that to make me shrink myself. And I think this is important for women who have big dreams, because you're not always going to be understood. Not everybody who watches you is going to get it or want to support you. Your happiness and confidence will trigger someone who is insecure in themselves. And you have to know that that is not about you. It's about them. And it is not your responsibility to make them feel different. So don't hold back in being who you want to be because you're afraid of how it's going to make people feel.
I love that. I love that. The
Mm,
power of being misunderstood. Like,
yes.
I goodness, like I feel like sometimes I get very insular and very like in my bubble, like where like I don't
Hmm.
necessarily like even hear like the noise
Hmm.
of people like being mean or being insecure, because I'm just like, that's for you. Like
Hmm.
like if that's the thought you have, that's for you. Cool.
Yeah.
Enjoy. And I
Yeah.
think unless you have that tough skin or have that level of like being able to like drown out that noise, it can be really tough to keep going if you're having that kind of experience.
Yeah, I think for the clients that I work with who are building brands and businesses online, it's one of the biggest fears that I see people coming to me with is this fear of being seen, because they're afraid of being judged, and being authentic to who they are because they're afraid of what people might think about them. And I have just come to realize, like, no matter how hard we try in life to please everybody, it's an impossible feat, right? Like, you can tiptoe around and walk on eggshells and bend over backwards and do 500 backflips. There's still going to be someone who's disappointed in you, right? Like, we look at like the most successful people who are killing it in life, and it's like people still have something negative to say about them. So let the negative people do their thing, and you keep doing you, keep being authentic, share who you are. Like, the people who find value in you as a human are so much more important than the people that want to tear you down. It's like, who are you going to be focused on? The people you want to serve, or the people that you're afraid of being judged by? And from my opinion, if you're building a business, that should always be tunnel vision on the people that you want to serve.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now, like just focusing on almost like going internal. Your
Mm-hmm.
clients hired you for a reason. Your clients want to see you live your life boldly. Your clients want to see you live authentically. They don't want to see you shrink. So
Yep.
show up for them in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other mindset shift that's really been on my mind, which I think we've talked about a lot, I've been reminding myself in life that you can't be mad at the results that you're not getting when there's work that you're simply unwilling to do. And I just posted that on my social media the other day, and some people were not very happy about it, and other people were like, "Ooh, needed this, love this, thank you." Like, if there's something that you want in your life, you cannot be upset if you're not doing the work to get it. Like, the only time that I feel disappointed is if I'm like actually working really hard and I'm not getting the result that I want, and I'm like, oh man, I'm really trying, I'm showing up and I'm doing. Then I can feel disappointed. But it's like, I don't get to have that disappointment or frustration at that the fact that I don't have what I want when I haven't been doing what it takes to get it.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I completely feel the same way. I see a lot of people like in the wedding industry who are like really cranky that like other people got published in places like Vogue or published in like Martha Stewart or whatever. And I'm just like, well, did you even try to submit? Have you ever
Exactly.
tried to submit a wedding? Have you ever been okay with being rejected? Have you like
Yep.
all of these things? If you want the thing and you're just like on the sidelines versus actually like in the arena, I think that's a quote from somewhere and I can't remember who said it, but like
I think
if you're
Brene
just going,
Brown. Yeah.
was it?
Brene
Yeah.
Brown, I think. Yeah.
Like if you're the one who's just like in the audience just being like, "Oh, well, like, I'll never get that." Yeah, you won't.
Hmm.
If you ever like if you don't ever submit or you don't ever try, you cannot be mad that you're not getting the same results as the people who are willing to get rejected, the people who are willing to try, the people who are willing to fail because
Yep.
they did the work.
Yep. And the people who are willing to start and be proud of where they are, right? Like I look at incredible speakers like Mel Robbins, Tony Robbins, and I'm like, I want to be like that one day. Well, guess what? First you have to talk in a room of 5 people. Then you got to talk in a room of 10 people. Then you got to talk in a room of 100 people. Like you don't get the opportunity that's all the way at the top straight out of the gate. Like you have to put yourself in a position where you have the experience to hold that, right? If you put me in an arena of 20,000 people right now, I might poop myself, but I'm going to speak on a stage in front of 200 and I know I'll be okay. So it's like you have to build to that and be willing to be proud of where you're at and take the opportunities that in front of you. Like you're not too good for the small opportunity that's been given to you. And I say that with so much love. Like, I know we look at people who we really admire and we're like, I want that. But you're not too good for the small opportunity that's in front of you and understand that that is a building block to getting to where you really want to be.
I love that so much. And like I think my audience knows this, but I was a nationally ranked public speaker in high school. Like I cannot tell you how many hours I spent talking to a wall practicing my speech before I ever got on the national level stage and did my
Mm-hmm.
thing. So I think it's important to like recognize A, put in the reps, but B, like you have to start somewhere and you cannot be
Yep.
mad at where you're starting at because if you put yourself in a room full of 20,000 people and had to give a speech but you've never practiced before, what do you think
Yeah.
is going to happen?
Exactly. I have a friend right now who I'm like, she wants to be a power lifter so bad. And I'm like, come on, do the meet with me in December. And she's like, I'm not strong enough yet. And I'm like, but you are. Like, you have to start where you're at and understand that confidence is gained through experience. And you only have the opportunity to get better. But like, why are we holding ourselves back from the opportunities that are right in front of us because we feel like we're just not ready yet or we're not there yet? Like, we got to stop.
Yeah. Like if you guys are listening to this and you're like, wow, these women are so confident. You don't know what we've been through. Like
Yeah.
you don't know all the things that we had to go through to get to where we are to be as confident as we are. I
Yep.
could tell you guys so many different stories, Jess. I'm sure you could tell so many different stories of how you got to where you are and some of the like
Mhm.
craziness of like how you had to show up for yourself in order to
Mhm.
build that confidence. Confidence is
Yeah.
not inherent. Confidence is
No.
built over time.
Yep. And it means doing it when your voice is shaking, when there's knots in your stomach, when you feel like you're going to have diarrhea. Like, you got to just do it. Like, you got bubble guts, do it anyway, because that's how you build that trust in yourself and that confidence. Like, people think, oh, I'm afraid to do it. I need to be confident before I do it. No, you do it afraid, and that's how you build your confidence. Everything that I've done, like, if you went back, if you decide to listen to the Queen of Pep Talks, go back to episode 001 and listen. The woman that I am right now is not the woman that I was 5 years ago when I recorded that first episode. Like, I don't even sound the same. My tone isn't the same. My language isn't the same. Like, I have changed and grown. I'm a much better speaker now because of the reps that I've put in. 500 podcast episodes. You get better when you record 500 episodes, right? So, like, be willing to suck. Be willing to be bad, and then you'll get good.
I love that so much. Just be willing to suck. Like I feel like that's like
Yeah.
a perfect like like a perfect
Yeah.
way to end this. It's just like be willing. Be willing
Yep.
to do the thing in order to get the thing that you're like
Yep.
going after. And just
100%.
recognize like what you just said there about like confidence is built through the experience. Confidence is built through the action taking. Like don't wait until you're motivated. Don't wait until you're confident. Don't wait until you're ready. Just go do it.
Hmm.
Sometimes that's
Yep.
the advice that we don't want to hear is just go do it. Like even
Yeah.
my fitness coach told me that last week. He was like, "Just go lift heavier," and I was like, "How dare you?" Like,
Yeah. But I
then
don't think I
didn't.
can. Yeah, but then you do. That's the thing. It's like you don't think you can, but then you do. And that's how you prove to yourself what you're capable of. You've got to push the edge. You've got to stretch it. You've got to step outside of the comfort zone. It's the simple advice, but that doesn't mean it's easy. And people want things to be complicated because they think like it needs to be. It doesn't. Just go do it.
Yeah, absolutely. This entire episode, like I feel so like energized and like breath of
Me
fresh air,
too.
like really excited to like go do stuff after this episode. I want to like share with my audience, how can they work with you? What do you have going on? What are some of the ways that you can help them? Because I really want them to connect with you.
Yeah, so I always recommend when I'm on podcast episodes, go to my Instagram, see what I'm about, go to my podcast, listen to me speak on some of my episodes, the way that I teach, the way that I encourage, the way that I motivate. And if you vibe with me, just send me a message on Instagram and we can chat about ways that I can help you or serve you. I work with women around mindset, around relationship with food and body, and building businesses. So if you're interested in working with me, just send me a DM and I'd love to chat and see kind of where you're at and what you want to achieve. And if I have an opportunity that would best serve you. But if you're not looking for direct mentorship right now, I still would recommend listening to my podcast because in my opinion, it's pretty good.
It's the best. I still like put it on and like will like listen to it while I get ready in the morning, and it's just I always get so many good nuggets from when I listen to your podcast.
I appreciate that. I love you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for this beautiful conversation, and I can't wait to do this again. This was so fun for me.
It really was. And I feel like we could have kept going. Like we could have talked for hours. There's so much to say.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you so
I
much
will
for
see you.
having me.
Thank you for being here. All right,
Of
guys. I will see
course.
you guys on the next episode of